Um, this is not an easy video to make. It's hard to know where to begin, but it's something that's on our hearts and we want to share. Today is January 18th, 2022. I don't know where 2021 went, but this day is really significant for our family. For those of you who haven't been following along our story and kind of what's taken place in our lives, January 18th last year, we lost our nephew, Silas. I know a lot of you have asked a lot of questions about that, and so many of you have reached out and prayed and supported us. And for those of you who are kind of like new to this story, I just want to kind of explain a little bit about who Silas was. He wasn't just like our nephew or my sister-in-law's son, or he really was like a son to us, like a brother to Jackson. When Silas was born, Alicia wasn't able to care for him. Alicia is Sean's sister. Sean's my husband. And so we had Jackson, who was 4 months old at the time, and we had the honor of caring for Silas for the first 6 months of his life. We had a lot of help, but he stayed with us most of the time. And then when Alicia was able to care for Silas and we did everything with our boys together, Jackson still saw Silas pretty much daily. And then when we got into a house that was big enough for more people, because we lived in a small place before, Alicia and Silas came and lived with us. They actually moved out just a few months before this all happened. So it really was more like a son. We had the honor of really filling in as extra parents, caring for him as parents when Alicia was unable to. Sean really embracing that father role for Silas throughout his entire life. And so it wasn't just this like, oh, I lost someone I loved. It was more of like, I lost like a part of us, like a part of me, like a part of my family, like who I am, Silas is a part of. And so losing that is obviously very hard, especially when he's 3 years old. It's just unexpected. So that's kind of who Silas was to us. And we've had a lot of people ask questions about how it happened. And I totally understand the wanting to know what happened, especially for those of you who have young kids. I'm sorry for essentially not answering those questions. A lot of you, I didn't even respond. It's hard. It's a hard thing to talk about. It's also not my place to relay that information. Alicia hadn't shared yet. And of course, I'm going to respect and honor what Alicia wants to do with that information. And Alicia's main goal for Silas's life and his testimony is to further the kingdom of God. And so on the anniversary of Silas's heaven date, which is today, Alicia has chosen to be so brave and strong and record all the way from Japan. She lives in Japan now. A video for you guys just explaining that day, everything that she's kind of had to go through, answering questions of like what good could come from this tragedy, how could God move, how she gets through every day, like, and really she's the only one who could tell you, as much as that weight of losing like a son for Sean and I, she didn't lose like a son. She lost her only son. And so I feel so honored to know her and to be a part of her life. And she's such a role model to me and an inspiration. She is my encourager and confidant, and she's really the sole person, human, aside from God, who really pulled Sean and I through this last year, with pregnancy, with Theo and everything, the way she handled it. Everyone just kind of went off of her. So I'm excited that she's willing to share this information with you guys just for the glory of God.
I remember Silas used to wake up at 8:30 because that's when his alarm clock turned green. I remember hearing him over the monitor, and it was 9, just a little bit past 9, and he was whining, which isn't normal for Silas. Usually right on the dot at 8:30, he's jumping out of bed and screaming at my door, "Mommy, Mommy, it's wake up time." But it was 9 o'clock and he was kind of whimpering, which wasn't normal, so that scared me already. And I jumped out of bed, and I remember going into his room, and he was kind of holding out his arms and whining, and he said his tummy hurt. And he said he was hungry. So I remember taking him out to the living room and just thinking he had a cold. He wasn't feeling well. And so I laid him down on the couch with his blanket and his pillow. And I went into the kitchen to make him breakfast. I made him a waffle and got him one of his little Danimals yogurts. And he sat up and he ate part of the waffle, but he still looked really lethargic. And he said he wanted to lay down. So he finished like half of his breakfast, I think, on his own, and just said he wanted to lay down and he wasn't feeling good. And I asked him if he wanted me to make him like a little bed on the couch, and he said yes. So I kind of bundled him up and asked him if he wanted his worship music on. And he said yes. So I turned on our worship Spotify playlist. And he said, lay with me, lay with me. And so I laid down with him and kind of like drifted off for a little bit. He kind of drifted off for a little bit. And I noticed he got really sweaty. And I said, are you hot? And he said, yes. So I kind of sat up to start fanning him and take his blanket off of him. And he started breathing a little bit weird, and his heart was beating really fast. And I said, are you okay? And he kind of looked at me a little bit weird and was doing kind of this weird thing with his jaw, like he was kind of trying to swallow spit. And I said, don't do that, you're gonna choke yourself. And he said, I need to burp, which meant he needed to throw up. And so I picked him up and took him to the bathroom and leaned him over the toilet to throw up. And his eyes rolled back and he went limp and he passed out. When he passed out, I remember screaming for Kyle and saying, get up, I need help, he's passed out. And Kyle came running, and I noticed that he started seizing, and so I brought him into the living room and I laid him down on his side. And I remember Kyle saying, like, we need to get him to the ER, and like went to go get ready to go. And I said, it's too late for that. You need to call 911. And he gets on the phone immediately and starts to dial in 911. And I left him with Silas on his side, went over to the couch and grabbed my phone, and I Google Duo'd my mom and said, I don't know what to do. He's seizing. And I just laid the phone down so that I could hear her. And I said, Kyle's on the phone with 911. He's seizing. She said, okay, just turn him on his side. I said, he is. And she said, just wait, it'll pass. And it passed, and his lips turned blue. And that's when panic set in. And I was like, he's not breathing. I need to start CPR. And by then, Kyle's on the phone with somebody, with an operator. And I just remember the operator saying, has she started CPR? And she said, okay, I need you to do it on my count. And I had already been doing CPR for a few seconds, and so I'm trying to sync it up with her count and give rescue breaths as she's saying to give them, so that she can track it and tell the people that are coming. The ambulance was there super quick. I think within 3 minutes of us making the phone call and Kyle giving that information, they were at our door. And I just remember feeling kind of a relief when they walked in, like, oh, thank goodness, help is here. And I remember placing my hand on his chest, and his heart was still beating. And then backing up for the medical team to take over. And they just started asking me all these questions. And I remember one of them saying, okay, he's stable, we're going to move him. And they were telling me I couldn't go with them. And whoever, somebody, I don't know who it was, interjected and said he can't speak for himself. He's under 4. He's not going to know if we ask him questions. The mother needs to go with us. And I just remember grabbing my purse and putting on my shoes and running out the door after the gurney. And they directed me to the front seat. And my mom was still on video call. And I just looked at her scared, and she told me, don't go there. And we were on our way, and the person driving was kind of explaining to me, this is what they're doing to stabilize him, and everything was going seemingly smoothly. And then I just started seeing them rush around the back of the ambulance, and I knew something had gone wrong, and the driver started trying to calm me down and tell me what was going on. And I just knew it wasn't a good sign already. And we pulled up to Scripps Hospital in San Diego, and they took out the gurney immediately, and a team of nurses came and got him, and a different person came and got me and took me to the waiting room, and said, as soon as we get like the gurney, him placed on a new gurney and in a room, like, we will bring you back. And I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 minutes. I don't know how much time passed. But a nurse came and got me, and she said, okay, you can go over there and I'll explain to you what we're doing. And they took me over there, and he was in one room, and there was like a glass wall between us. So I was in the room where the vitals cart was, and one of the supervising nurses, and there was this whole team of people around him. And they had cut his clothes and they were working on him, and I could hear faintly what they were saying. And I remember my mom was still on the phone with me. I had her on a video call, and I remember one of the nurses saying, like, she can't be on a phone call in here. And the lead nurse saying it's her mother. And I remember thinking that wasn't a good sign. And then I heard the nurses say, like, I saw them shock him. And I saw the nurses say, like, push around a Epi. And I watched them work on him. And some time would pass and they would be doing compressions. And then they would shock him. And then I would hear the nurse again push another round of Epi. And I think that happened probably 4 or 5 times. And I remember looking down at my mom and just shaking my head. And she kept saying, don't go there, it's not over. And I remember telling her, they've already pushed 4 rounds of Epi. This isn't normal. He should have responded. And the doctor came in the room where I was at, and I could see them still working on him. And he said, I just want to update you on what's going on. We're doing everything we can, but there is a problem with his heart. We're breathing for him, but we can't seem to get his heart to start on its own. And they worked on him for I don't know how long after that as well. And I just remember feeling like this isn't going to be good. They haven't got him back yet. And then the nurse said, we're going to take you inside the room. And they brought me inside the room next to him. And the doctor looked at me and he said, we've done everything that we can do, and we can't save him. And I remember almost screaming, like, what do you mean there's nothing that you can do? There's nothing? And he said, no, I'm so sorry. And the nurses backed away and they turned off the machines. And I just remember screaming. And I think I went into shock after that. I just remember screaming, and I don't know how much time passed. My mom stayed on the phone with me. I remember a nurse coming in and asking if I wanted a chaplain to come, and I said yes. And I remember another nurse, like, hearing what was going on around me. Ask, like, where's her family? Where's her husband? Why aren't they here? And getting the word that that Kyle was at the house and he wasn't allowed to come, and that because Silas had passed, this was now a criminal investigation. So he wasn't going to be able to come and meet me. And so I ended up sitting there with him and this chaplain by myself until the medical examiner showed up. And once that happened, they took me into a room for interrogation. And they asked my medical history, my criminal history, because I do have a history with substance abuse. And they wanted to know if any of that could have affected what happened, or if there were drugs in the house. I did my best just to answer their questions, because I figured I just wanted to do whatever I could to help them figure out what happened to my baby. And I remember I would be able to pull it together as long as they were in the room and asking me questions, because I just wanted to help them, so that I could understand myself. And then they would leave and I would break down again. And it just seemed like that went on for hours. The rest of that day was long, and it just felt like it was never going to end. I remember asking for my brother. My mom asked what she could do, and I said, I want Sean here. And so my family came out. My stepdad and Sean and Kristen came out, and once we were finally back at the house, we picked up Kyle and we went back to my mom's and made that trip from San Diego back up to my parents' house. And we, on the way there, received a call from someone at the medical examiner's office. And I remember the lady saying, I'm sorry, I know you've had a long day, but this is time sensitive. And I don't remember how she worded it, but asked me if I would be willing to donate Silas's organs to somebody who might possibly need them. And I couldn't even answer that question at the time. I remember when we got to the house, some good friends of my parents were there, and we all prayed over it, and we knew what the right decision was. And from what we believe, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, and He no longer needs those things. And even though I couldn't fathom something that quickly, and thinking of him being cut into already, I knew that there was a possibility that he could change somebody else's life. And I gave my, I think it's like a medical proxy, to my mom so that she could speak to them, because I just wasn't in a place to answer those questions that they needed about his medical history. And she made the phone call to the medical examiner and told them that they could use his organs. They asked for his kneecaps, they asked for his corneas, and I think a few other things. And we ended up making the decision to donate. And we don't know if any of those donations were successful in transplants yet. I know everyone's biggest question now is, so what happened? We didn't find out right away. The medical examiner's report we actually just got recently, right before Kyle and I moved to Japan. And the medical examiner's report reads that the cause of death was SUDC, sudden unexplained death in childhood. And they said basically that it had something to do with his heart, but they don't know what made it stop. it's been a really rough year, especially with all the changes that have happened for our family, not only losing Silas, but losing mine and Sean's grandfather in the following week, and Kyle and I moving to Japan. Our grief journey has been hard, but I have been able to take comfort in a few things and kind of to share what God's doing now in our lives is that He has ministered to us in ways that we never thought possible. We have felt love and mercy and kindness and comfort in places where have been the darkest. We've gotten to see people whose lives were affected by Silas come to know Jesus. We've seen people's lives impacted because of his, and so many people who have shared stories with us. I think one of the things that I'm constantly reminded of that gives me hope, and one of like the main scriptures that I've leaned on this year is Revelations 21:4, which says, "And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, and no more sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away." And the verse before that talks about God being with his people and being able to wipe away our tears. I look forward to that day. And then another quote from one of my favorite authors, C.S. Lewis writes, "In the problem of pain, God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pain. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world." And that rings so true for me. I think it's easy for us to lose focus when everything is going right, but when the only thing that you have to cling to is God, you learn how to do that. So our hope as a family is that our pain would be used as a megaphone to reach somebody out there who might be broken or is hurting, that you might know that you can find hope and comfort in Jesus.
Grief is a funny thing. It's an ongoing battle. It's not really that, people say time heals all, and it doesn't actually. As time goes on, sometimes it gets harder. Some days are easier. But God heals, and God's who we're clinging to in this time. Thank you guys, like I said earlier, thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your support and the outpour of love that you've shown our family. If you are a believer, we truly do appreciate your prayers so much, and the things that have gotten us through this past year is clinging to God and the prayers of the body of the church just coming around us and praying for us. Really, I can't express enough how much it's really done. For the non-believers who have no idea really what we're talking about when we say that we have this hope, and what is this hope you guys talk of seeing Silas again? If you just have no idea what we're talking about, there is a phone number which we will put up, and a website you can check out and call and ask questions. Jesus Christ, he loves you and he wants to know you. He's not like he created you, and he truly wants to know you. And this may be your first time hearing that you are loved. And the world is a dark and scary place, and it's filled with heartache and sadness. And that's not the way it was originally created. And even with the heartache and sadness and pain, Jesus Christ comes in and he loves you, and he gives you this hope, and it's amazing. And that is what you hear believers talk about. Like, we're not sad that the world is absolutely chaotic. You know, it breaks our hearts, but at the same time, we know that this is not our end place. This is not our forever home. We have so much more to look forward to. So if you're curious about what that is and what that means, I encourage you to ask questions. I know that Silas would want you to know Jesus Christ. That was something unique about Silas, that he loved Jesus, and he would be like, Jesus loves you, and he wanted everyone to know. Even at 3 years old, this kid was just so advanced and smart, and had such a beautiful heart for people, and he would always be like, I love everybody, and he really did. And he would want you to know who Jesus Christ is and experience heaven, what he's experiencing right now, just being in the presence of our Lord. So I know that was like a really heavy, hard, probably video. And our prayer and hope for this video is that if you're a non-believer, we pray that it just stirs something in your heart that you may not know or understand what you're feeling and what are these butterflies, or you may feel nothing. You may just think like, I want to know this. Like, that's our hope for this video. So I hope that even if it just reaches one person, like, that's amazing. So we love you guys. Thanks for watching.